Just Baseball show on Monday, September 30th. Jack, Aram, as always, it is presented by BetMGM. Here's the deal. We had to record a little bit earlier than we typically do on Sunday because of some schedule stuff. So we are not doing a roundup. I also didn't think that the roundup made any sense, and I think you agree because there were a lot of series that didn't really carry much weight, and we're excited to see this playoff bracket get finalized. So what we're going to do today is give you a rundown of the eliminated teams. And we're going to do one thing to look forward to for each eliminated team after some headlines off the top. And then tomorrow, you get all three of us for our official postseason bracket, picks, predictions, all that, who wins, how many games, yada, yada. You get our World Series winner, which is very fun. So, all that is coming. But before any of that, I do want to tell you about something that is sure to fire us up. I know Aram is going to be there in New York. He makes his valiant return to New York City
Yes.
because eBay is the place to experience all the excitement and huge pulls on sports card breaks. They've been running breaks 7 days a week from vetted breakers, and we are amped to be partnering with eBay for a special charity box break and playoff watch party at 4 o'clock Eastern on October 2nd. That's what, Wednesday, right?
hmm
October 2nd. If you're in New York City, you can join us in person at Bleecker Trading at 96 Christopher Street in New York. Come watch the wild card round with the Just Baseball team. Enjoy some free pizza and giveaways courtesy of our friends at Homage Apparel. If you cannot join us in person, here's how to join a break on eBay Live so you can follow along. You find a break by tapping on eBay Live on the app. You get the eBay app. You go to eBay Live, you scroll down, and you click to see all of the available breaks. You click, quote, buy spot and choose what kind of items you want to call dibs on. Use the search feature to find the player, team, or division you want. Don't forget to set a reminder for this break on
Yeah.
Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern. You can click the alarm icon button or tap to remind me. So you'll also get a notification when the break starts, and you can tune in October 2nd at 4 p.m. Eastern on eBay Live. Join us for the specialty box break and playoff watch party at 4 o'clock. All the proceeds going to charity. Visit the link in our link tree for more details. I know you're pretty fired up for this, man.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm gonna make my breaking debut too. So I'll be the one, ripping these cards and making sure they go to their rightful owners. If you're not familiar with the break, it's you can buy a team spot, 30 teams, and all of the cards that are pulled, including the autographs, everything that are of that team that you bought will go to you and get shipped to you. It's a great way to get in and get in on rips when the product's really expensive to at least be able to get in on the ground floor without having to break the bank. And we're ripping 2023 Bowman Chrome, so a lot of fun prospects in there, and then 2024 Tops as well, both of those. So if you buy the Diamondback spot, for example, you would get all the Diamondback cards from both of those boxes. So it'll be fun, and I'll be there to give you the 411 on any of the prospects in Bowman if you may not be familiar with them.
Are you going to wear the latex gloves that I see
No,
sometimes on the
no, those
break?
are eye wash. I will be careful,
Really?
very, very careful. Instant sleeve, but I think the latex gloves are a little eye wash.
So eye wash meaning too much or
Too much, too much. You can open the pack with your hands, put it immediately in the card immediately into a
yeah.
sleeve, and put it to the side. And the latex glove does not need to be there. I think I'm going to be less deliberate with my hands if I have a latex glove on, and I'm more likely to drop the card or something like that. So I want to be nice and careful. And
Okay.
who knows? We could pull Ellie to a cruise rookie. We could
hmm
pull some crazy stuff. So it should be fun. And again, all the spots that are sold, like those all those proceeds go to charity, but the cards those
Yeah.
go to you. So you donate to charity, and you have a chance to pull some sick cards, and you get to hang out with us. And if you're in New York, come in person, come catch the wild card round with us, and some good pizza nearby, obviously.
There are some superstars in these boxes. You mentioned Ellie De La Cruz. I'm thinking about Lenyn Sosa of the Chicago
Yeah.
White Sox.
Hey,
You
dude,
got
he
some
has
others.
been balling
I
out, by the
know.
way, down the stretch here.
Just homered on Sunday, man. He's balling.
He's been good.
So, a pair of superstars, Lenyn Sosa, Ellie De La Cruz. Again, Bleecker Trading, October 2nd at 4 p.m. Eastern. Get there or join them on the eBay Live app. I've got some headlines that I want to run through with you before we get to the eliminated teams. And the big one came from Katie Wu on Sunday morning. She said the St. Louis Cardinals are expected to part ways with seven-time All-Star Paul Goldschmidt at the end of the season, and she heard that from multiple league sources. He will be an unrestricted free agent. This is the end of the road for his extension that he signed with St. Louis. And I don't know if it was entirely shocking. I didn't necessarily view it as a foregone conclusion, though. I was thinking, hey, rework a cheaper AAV and get Goldschmidt and Arenado back because they have been the vets in the corner infield that, make a lot of sense here. But I think they view this as a chance to shed payroll, which they're clearly trying to do with Sonny Gray, which we'll get to in a moment. And B, they might view this as a chance to just turn the page from this iteration of Cardinals baseball because this iteration of Cardinals baseball has been pretty damn disappointing when you think about the expectations that you had for the blend of young talent and, veteran leadership. And, even last year, man, with like an Adam Wainwright, you hope to have those three tiers of age on your roster blend and create a great product. It just hasn't really been a great product over the last couple of years. And I know you and Peter talked about this a little bit last week.
Yeah, and I feel for any Cardinals fans that like listen to the show and just be like, "Oh, you're hammering on them a little too much." I know. Also, apologize on Friday for any Braves fans that thought we maybe were a little hard on the Braves. It didn't help that we brought Fink in there too. So, all in good fun. Obviously, the Braves have been very good for a while now. So, we're always going to poke fun at I think some of the loudest fans in
Yeah.
baseball over there. So I'm always going to have my side of the fun there too. But with the Cardinals, like the big reason why I've been so overwhelmingly negative with them is not because I hate them. I told you I have pretty much family ties now to the Cardinals where,
Yeah.
I have a lot of people in my ear asking me when they're going to be good again and what the latest is on them. It's more about I get frustrated when teams who have historically strong fan bases and have historically been great just operate in almost a way like a version of ineptitude that you haven't really seen from them and
Yeah.
you start to see the fans sour and like you saw attendance drop a little bit this year as a result. I think 5,000 less fans per game, and I guarantee in terms of butts in the seats it was a lot less than that,
Mhm.
because a lot of it is probably corporate and people that have had season tickets forever, but I can guarantee that people were not showing up nearly as much, and I don't blame them because there's one side of it where it's okay. This team keeps trying. I look at the Padres' struggles up until the last couple of years, but even before that, where they're making the playoffs, coming up a little bit short, they kept trying. You
Yeah.
can't fault them for not trying, and they were being aggressive and attempting different things. With the Cardinals, it feels like it's different versions of like halfway trying, and that would be more frustrating to me than anything. And I will say, like, I don't, maybe I phrased that wrong. I wouldn't say different versions. I'd say almost the same version of halfway trying, where it's like the same frustrating mistakes, the same, I think, lack of desire to go aggressive on the pitching market. And then we're going to talk about the one time they did and what they are reportedly looking to do after that.
Yeah.
I just feel like it's a lot of the same mistakes repeated by the Cardinals over the last few years. And it just seems like John Mozeliak and co have like been a little bit delayed and wanting to get with the times, and I just don't know if they're adaptable at this point to be able to do that. Like I just don't know how you can look at this team going into each year the last couple of years and say, hey, I think this is our best shot right now. I think we're in a good spot, and then
Yeah.
somehow act surprised also when it doesn't go that way. I think everybody knew the writing was on the wall for the season to kind of go exactly like it has. And I think there's some ways where they make it worse on themselves with the Jordan Walker situation, with the Wilson Contreras situation last year. I think there's several different examples where, I mean, the way they've handled Nolan Gorman, like I think there's a lot of ways where they've also just made these challenges compound for maybe a lack of patience. But then at
Yeah.
the same time, there's not a lot of urgency in the off seasons. So it's like there's no patience during the season with the way that you handle some of your players that you already have. And then there's no urgency in the offseason. And I just don't really understand that dichotomy.
So let me ask you, and you can treat this as a rhetorical question if you want, or you can offer me an answer if something jumps to your mind immediately. When was the last time you were pleasantly surprised by a move that the St. Louis Cardinals made? Was it trading for
The one that they're
Arenado?
about to undo, reportedly. Like,
Sonny
and
Gray? Like you were
yeah,
pleasantly surprised. I thought Sonny was actually a pretty Cardinals move there because
so
he's a
did I. But
veteran.
like, there's been a lot of times where I've thought, oh, no brainer for the Cardinals to add this pitcher or that pitcher or just this player, and they don't really do it.
Okay, so let me rephrase because Sonny, like you thought that that was a good fit immediately, right?
Yes.
When was the last time you said, "Whoa, the Cardinals did that"? I don't think Sonny Gray was a whoa move by the St. Louis
No, not a
Cardinals.
whoa, but I was just like, okay, that's
Yeah,
pleasant
that works.
surprise for
That's what
me.
they were supposed to do. That's the Cardinals operating like the Cardinals. I feel like I haven't been pleasantly surprised or like even a little bit shocked by a Cardinals move in a long time. I feel like they're just kind of maintaining status quo, and they're hoping that Brendan Donovan gives him a great year and Jordan Walker ticks up. And I totally understand. And like I'd be disappointed in Jordan Walker's second year too. I don't get me wrong. But it just feels like the Cardinals, you're right, have been doing the same thing every offseason for the last half decade or so, and it stinks. And I know they gave big money to Wilson Contreras, and I don't know. I feel like a lot of the palpable excitement has gone away since you traded for Arenado. I think the trade for Arenado was the moment where it's like the Cardinals are really doing this. And since then, it's
Yep.
just been that slow taper down.
And I understand, like, you were hoping that you'd get more from Goldschmidt and Arenado, but you had a year where, both of those guys were, MVP candidates.
Didn't they
And
both finish top three in MVP
yeah,
voting?
yeah. And I think there was a level of, okay, well, are you going to really push it forward with some help around them? And they didn't really do that. And then, now you're seeing these players taper off, especially Goldie at 37. And I can understand them not wanting to bring him back. I thought,
Sure.
maybe they'd be willing to do that on like a Matt Carpenter type of role for next year,
Yeah.
where he's in a supplemental aspect and just kind of being the vet on the team. But I think they'd rather just have a guy on the minimum. Clearly, if the goal is to slash payroll, and obviously even Goldie in a diminished role is not going to be getting $720,000. He's going to be making more than that. So
Right.
I understand that side of it, but it's just when you look at this team now, it just very quickly you had a lot of eggs in the basket of Goldschmidt and Arenado,
Yeah.
and now with the way that Arenado is even trending himself too. Like I still think he's clearly fine and a solid third baseman for you moving forward. And there's still always a chance that he'll be better offensively next year. Still at just 33.
Yeah.
But I mean, you're counting on a leap from Mason Wynn. You're counting on a leap from Jordan Walker, who you kept in AAA for a lot of this year. I think you've been waiting much too long for that Lars Newbar breakout
Yeah.
that people have been talking about now, and I just think that ship's kind of sailed. You've probably seen the best of Brendan Donovan at this point. He's a
Yeah.
really good player, but it's not going to get, I think, much better than what you got this year. And this year, you still came up short. I love Brendan Donovan, but that's a really solid glue guy. Like, I just don't know what this team's identity is. And I like the trade for Eric Fetty. That helps. And I think that's part of the reason maybe why they're more willing to part with a Sonny Gray. But let's be real here. Even with how bad Sonny Gray was in the second half, I think he had like a 4.6 in the second half versus, I think a full run below that in the first half. Fetty didn't really sprint through the tape either.
No.
So, and it's not like Fetty is 28 years old. He's going to be 32 at the start of next season. So I do kind of think it's crazy to want to subtract maybe the one guy that I think clearly has the potential to grab the top of the rotation. And I understand that this version of Sonny Gray may not be that clear-cut frontline guy,
Yeah.
but who's getting the ball game one in a postseason series for this team? It's Sonny Gray, and you don't blink. With the team that you have now moving forward, if you do end up moving off of Sonny Gray, it's what? Eric Fetty. You're going to pick up the Kyle Gibson option. You're going to do like
You might
Lance
pick
Lynn
up the
probably gets his
Lance
option
Lynn
picked up.
option. Yeah.
Those are all innings eaters. Like that's a good way to survive the season. But I
Yeah.
just feel like that's exactly what they've been doing, especially on the pitching
Right.
side of things, is surviving the
And
season.
and to
And
your point, that's
congrats, you survived. You're slightly above 500.
right. To your point, you're not supposed to survive if you're the St. Louis Cardinals. And I think you have the best market share in terms of TV ratings in Major League Baseball still. I think a greater percentage of the St. Louis metropolitan area watches Cardinals baseball games every given night than any other baseball market in America. Like you have a fan base that you should be trying to sprint through the tape for. And they're not doing that. They're trying to get there. They're not trying to run through it. And I feel
Yeah.
like they need to get to the point where they try and run through it. And furthering your point, only thing on Gray that I'll add is, you know, you're shopping your opening day starter. You're a team that
Yes.
has alleged aspirations to win the division, and you're shopping your opening day starter. That works for Milwaukee because Milwaukee has figured out how to do that, and they are a bottom five market in terms of size in Major League Baseball, if I'm not mistaken. Like you're the St. Louis Cardinals. I know that St. Louis and Milwaukee are not totally different places, but in terms of market and in terms of allure and in terms of franchise, the Cardinals are different than the Milwaukee Brewers, and they're operating like they are the Milwaukee Brewers right now, and you can't be doing that.
No, well, especially because I think this team, the farm system is actually in a pretty good spot. You've got some pitching coming up that, I mean, they have the minor league pitcher of the year in Quinn Matthews, who we're going to talk plenty about. We just did talk about on the call up. Tink Hence had a nice year. He can still really throw. You hope TK Roby can be healthy. These are all interesting arms, and
Yeah.
they've got some depth too. Like that's great.
Graceffo, McGreevy. Yeah, you have depth.
Yeah, they've got that depth. And then, position player wise, you've got some pieces throughout the system. So I look at that and I'm like, okay, go sign an impactful star or two. Like, I'm not a believer in building a team through free agency, but they've got good complementary pieces. And clearly, there's been this desire to hold on to their prospects. Like, even their biggest splash in the deadline was trading a big leaguer essentially for a big leaguer. They
Right.
like Mozeliak has had no interest in subtracting from this farm system. What is Ivan Herrera doing there? I don't understand what their plan is going to be with him, considering that Contreras is one of their best building blocks moving
Yeah.
forward. And so now, you got to figure out what you're going to do with him, who was a guy that I thought could have been moved last offseason and had been discussed a little bit. We talked about how long they held on to Dylan Carlson, end up pretty much giving him away for nothing. And I don't blame them for that, but I think there was points and times where they could have got more for him. I think there's a lot of just overriding themselves and
Mm-hmm.
like just kind of sliding right into and segueing into the Sonny Gray side of the conversation. Like I think this is just another example of that where I think it feels like they're impulsive, like where they make a decision and then they're willing to renege or I think override that decision quite quickly, which to me is almost, I'm a believer in being able to admit when you make a mistake and then turn the page. You usually have an opposite issue in Major League Baseball where,
Yeah.
GMs and front office members are usually too willing to tolerate them being wrong and weather the storm to just in hopes that it'll turn around and they'll be right.
Yeah.
But I think with the Cardinals, it's almost haphazard. And the Sonny Gray contract's a perfect example. You backload that deal to the degree that, the first year of the deal was only $10 million. And then it's backloaded to what, 25 million in year 2 and
Mm-hmm.
then 30 in year 3 with a $5 million buyout if you don't pick up the club option in year 4, which almost surely probably will not be picked up, especially with the way that it's backloaded in general anyways. Like, was your plan all along to just have him pitch for $10 million in the
And
first
trade
year
him.
and then try to move a contract that is so heavily backloaded that very few teams are really going to want to take that on for a
Y-
guy that's going to be 35 at the start of next season and is already dealing with some arm issues? Like, you knew what you were signing up for here contract wise. You had him for the 1 year,
Yeah.
and then you're going to try to move him now when the contract could not be less movable. It will be more movable even if he throws like shit next year, after next year, with
Mm-hmm.
how much money would be left on the table. So now you're going to even have to maybe eat money. You're the St. Louis Cardinals. You don't eat money to salary dump. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. And to your point about like the TV market, like even with the attendance drop this year, they still average 35,000 a game. Like, why are we slashing payroll if we're the St. Louis Cardinals here? Like,
Yeah.
you already have some money naturally coming off the books. I
Yeah.
think you should be doing
And,
anything but slashing
well,
payroll.
I will say they were a Bally market. I'm not sure what the financials are looking like there. Like that was Bally Sports Midwest that broadcasted their game. So I don't know. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what the restructuring looks like. There could be some pinching there that
Well,
needs
any owner is going to tell you that his hands are tied
exactly. And
he's in
this year
big
was a
trouble
net
over there.
negative. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So listen, John Mozeliak has the opportunity to, salvage a lot of this conversation if he does make a move for a guy that seems to be available according to Bob Nightingale. And that's Garrett Crochet. I know the big name here is the Philadelphia Phillies. But Crochet has said he's open to a contract extension with the White Sox, but Bob Nightingale, in his Sunday notebook, said the team still intends on trading him this offseason. He named the Phillies are one of the teams reportedly interested. I get it. I think Crochet could be a hell of a Cardinal. I think he could be a hell of a Philly. I don't think he should be a hell of a White Sox. I think this is the White Sox opportunity to actually add some pieces that are going to help them. And they can do the upper minors Miami Marlins thing where, you have a couple guys starting Charlotte after this. Like I thought this was an interesting report. Don't get me wrong, but I don't see any reason why the White Sox should entertain an extension with Crochet when
No.
everybody else is so far off.
To me, I felt like this was actually a Crochet circling back and saying, "Hey, I know I screwed you guys on the leverage last time around. Let me throw you a bone back the other direction
Yeah.
and say, hey, I'm open to extension talks so that now it's not a lame duck situation where teams that are trying to negotiate with the White Sox say, hey, he doesn't want to pitch here anymore.
Right.
You're just going to roll him out there and he's going to be bought out. He's not going to be bought in at all. And his ERA is going to inflate to the fours. Okay, go ahead, sit on him. Take the risk of him getting hurt too, whatever. At least now the White Sox can say, hey, we would prefer to move him, but if the offer's not there, we'll sign him to an extremely team-friendly extension. They'll never do it.
Right.
Extremely team-friendly extension, and we've got him for 8+ years now, so we don't care. At least I think that's what it seemed like to me. Like, okay, I screwed you guys in leverage talks with the things I said about my innings and around the deadline. So I'll throw you a bone back the other way, and this will get you out of here maybe a little bit quicker. That's at least how I perceived it. But did Nightingale mention the Cardinals, or are you just throwing them in there as like this is something that you can actually do to right the ship here? Because I do agree, like, and that's the biggest problem is, they're never going to be bad because they have these good complementary pieces in St. Louis, but they need to swing for the fences at some point now because it's too much, like you said, at the status quo.
Bob Nightingale did not mention the Cardinals. It was just the
Because
Phillies that he mentioned. I think the Cardinals would be a perfect fit
they
for
should be
Garrett Crochet.
operating like the Phillies, man. The Phillies still have a good farm system. They built it up. They throw money in the right directions when they need to. I understand again the finances might be a little bit different, but what about 2 years ago? And so that's something that's interesting. The Phillies do have the farm to be able to do it. We just broke down the Phillies farm system on the call up, and I think it's one that would finally be that like Dombrowski move that we've continued to tease and say like, okay, when does he finally do it? Like, when does he go vintage Dombrowski?
Yeah.
Could see it. Like any deal headlined by Aiden Miller and Eduardo Taiit and some of these other pieces they have, like they could make that happen. And of course you still have Andrew Painter too. So like they can essentially trade for anybody they want. I do believe with just having with Joe pretty much set to graduate. Painter is clearly the top pitching prospect in baseball, and he's going to be healthy and ready to go. And then you have Aiden Miller, who's one of the best, left side of the infield guys, I think, in the minor leagues in terms of prospect intrigue and other pieces
Yeah.
as well. Like, it makes a lot of sense for the Phillies, given how they're getting older. Ranger Suarez has been putrid in the second half.
Crazy.
They already extended Christopher Sanchez for cheap. Like, it makes all the sense in the world. And I don't think there's a lot of teams that are going to be able to outbid the Phillies prospect wise if they're willing to go all in here. And with how expensive they are, this is the one way you can lock somebody up for a long time without really, I think, going way over the tax implications, because they are going to have a lot of guys making a lot of money, but with Crochet being under control for so many years, that big money for Crochet won't kick in until some of the big names like Schwarber and Castellanos and even Trey Turner towards the end there. Like, a lot of that money will be trending towards coming off the books or already off the books.
I think it was Buster Olney. Yeah, it was Buster Olney late last week that said, what the talks broke down after Philly said no to the White Sox mandating that Andrew Painter be in the return for Crochet.
I wouldn't move Painter for Crochet
I wouldn't move him either. But
because
I'm with you.
that it's going to be a lot of other pieces as well.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, I'm totally with you, and I think the quantity over quality game can certainly play this offseason.
mhm.
Given where we're at in the Crochet White Sox saga, I think you can revisit that, and you're not in the heat of the moment where it gets is like, do I keep him? Do I move him? How do I operate here? Like, I think that's a frenetic pace that he was working at for that week that he was presenting the Painter offer, and Dombrowski said no. I think now they can have that relaxed, hey, let's go get coffee on December
Yes.
5th and let's chat. It's like, I know you really want Painter, but like this Aiden Miller guy's awesome. And let me tell you about Eduardo Taiit. And let me tell you about, some of these other guys that are littered around and you could probably get it done. I do
Yeah,
think so.
I do think you can get it done without Painter, and I think it's a great point. I think the time sensitivity to it, and a guy in Chris Getz who's still trying to solidify himself as the right guy for the
Yeah,
job. You don't want to make that impulsive trade that could age poorly, and then people are going to want your head on a stick if
right.
next year doesn't go well, and there's a good chance it doesn't go well. So you want to show that you're building, and you give yourself more runway if you don't rush that trade.
Exactly. Two more headlines before we get into the thing to look forward to for each eliminated team. Rocco Baldelli, real quick, is expected to return as the team's manager. He will remain the team's manager in 2025. Derek Falvey, who's the president of baseball operations, said that. That's per Aaron Gleeman of The Athletic in Minneapolis. Okay. I really don't have a reaction to that. I think a change would have been warranted here. But at the end of the day, okay, what am I going to say?
They kind of operate like the Cardinals. And I know they had similar RSN issues, but also the Cardinals draw another 10,000 fans a game, right? Like the Cardinals draw pretty much. This is gonna be the first year I think they haven't drawn 3 million. And I don't know. I mean, I know they drew them last year. I don't know how many years in a row that they were at 3 million in St. Louis, but regardless, like this is a situation in Minnesota where I understand that the payroll implications actually can make a little bit more sense because they're not bringing in, I think, quite as much, both from the turnstiles and also on TV. And I think that they feel it a little bit more. But that's even more reason where I think, if you're not able to really play big in free agency, you're not really making any big moves at the deadline. And you look at the team that still is very talented. I understand that they were banged up and they've had some misfortune this year, without a doubt. I still don't understand how you can look at this ball club, the way that they finished, how absolutely atrocious it was, and still say that, Rocco Baldelli is the right guy for the job there. Twins fans, this is another one. I'm always going to defer to you fan bases when it comes to managerial, just approval rating. But every time I tune in, I know Peter's very outspoken about
Peter's
his
out.
Rocco Baldelli
Peter, for some
disdain.
reason, is like, I hate him.
I
Okay.
know Peter really doesn't like him, but I
Yeah.
kind of hear him, man. Like, this was a team that it wasn't just how poorly they played, it was how
Yeah.
checked out they looked too. And I think that's a big part of the manager's job as well. Is, of
I
course,
think so.
you can't make all, 26, 27 grown men, exactly do what you want all the
You can't
time that
make
are all
Pablo
millionaires.
Lopez go 7 innings of 2-run ball. Hell, I don't think he has impact on Pablo Lopez. I think he has impact on like 15 of those guys that are on pre-arb deals right now. And I'm with you. Everybody looked flat for the final 2 weeks.
Dude, even Carlos Santana is making base running mistakes, and
Yeah.
that was a spot where they probably should have had a pinch runner for him. And I know it's tough when you got different guys getting hurt, and Correa was barely available, and Royce Lewis obviously consistently hurt, and Buxton's consistently hurt. But then that goes back to Falvey. You knew that, right? Like, you know that these guys are going to have an uphill battle at 400 plate appearances every single year. If I told you going into this year that you're going to get nearly 400 plate appearances from Byron Buxton, you're taking that. I
Mm-hmm.
think you would have wanted more than 367 from Correa, and 321 from Royce Lewis is probably almost a push. But, like, how are you building your team to be ready for that and be able to handle, I think those kinds of struggles. And I just don't think that they were set up properly depth wise. There was a lot, I think, of playing time that probably went to guys that probably should not have been getting as much PT as they did. And Emmanuel Margot is one of the first names I look at there. But they're going to do this for one more year and see how it goes. It's a good team. They've had some positive stories, and we'll get to that because I think there's one thing to look forward to within this team too.
Yeah.
And I think Joe Ryan getting hurt definitely made things tougher. But I don't know. I think there's a lot of like stagnation and status quo issues here too as well. And I was surprised to see Baldelli coming back.
Zero stagnation issues in Kansas City. And the last headline we have is Vinnie Pasquantino. Vinnie Pasquantino, according to Ann Rogers of MLB.com, is scheduled to hit in another live BP session today. That's Monday, parentheses, wherever the Royals are at. We'll see. Rosters for the wild card series won't be set until Tuesday morning. Allegedly, Vinny will have 2 live BPs under his belt. I know he'll have 2 live BPs under his belt, but allegedly there is a non-zero chance that Vinny Pasquantino is on the wild card roster for the Kansas City Royals. This would be, fully healthy or not, a massive shot of adrenaline for this roster.
No doubt. I mean, the way he was swinging it in the second half too. But I mean, this is a guy that's I feel like a culture guy for them too. I think he's huge for them just to get the vibes going. It's a young team, but then even Salvador as the older guy is young hearted, and you can tell they all kind of feed off of each other. I think just having Vinny available off the bench in that series and just having him, not just checked out, and not that he'd be checked out, but I mean like physically checked out to where
Right.
he's not going to come in the game. He's not going to be, having a bat in his hands. I just think seeing him with a bat in his hands in the dugout will give this team a little bit more energy, and not that they need it, but I just think that there's this galvanizing aspect to that with how awesome Vinny is.
So I don't want to set this expectation for him, but that type of like presence and energy screams 2016 Schwarber. Do you remember any of that
Yeah.
when Schwarber missed the entire year with the ACL tear? I want to say it was, and then he comes back and he's available. Like, you have it in the back of your mind. And he put together some massive plate appearances for the Cubs in that one. Like that 2016 Schwarber, just the sheer presence was huge for the Cubs. And I'm thinking for the 2024 Kansas City Royals, like, that is huge for the Kansas City Royals if they advance past the wild card series. And even having his presence, that's huge. And this is when you see shit like that.
Yeah, 100%. And Vinny seems like, I mean, even his press conference after he got hurt, he's like, I'm not saying my season's over. I refuse to say it. Like, I'm going to find a way. I'm going to try to find a way to get back out there. And I believed him when he said it for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think he's going to get back out there, even if they want to like, keep him away from lefties. It's a little bit more risky getting jammed up in there. You have him going against righties, see how it goes. And if he's a little cold, that's fine. Then you just have him available off the bench and see how it looks into the next round as well too. But getting the live ABs is huge. I mean, I'm excited to see if he can get back out there. But yeah, like you said, even just having him available in any context does give you a little bit of that. I think the vibes of Schwarber and what was happening there. But I think if he's ready to go, he's going to find a way to get himself in that starting lineup, and he makes a huge difference because he puts the ball in play very consistently, hits the ball very hard. And, in terms of just guys that have a chance to leave the yard, like any AB and can drive in a lot of runs, you look at Bobby Witt, you look at Salvador Perez, and then, who else on that ball club had more than 20 home runs? It was Paul DeYoung.
Yeah.
So, I look at a Vinnie Pasquantino and I'm like, okay, that's another guy that really helps elongate that lineup and give him power. I know he had 19, but if he didn't hurt his thumb, he's 20 plus, and he's also,
No
I think
doubt.
the bat to ball on in his game is really underrated. So, man, that would really change things for them. I really believe it.
Yep. All right. We are going to get to one thing to watch for each eliminated team moving into 2025 in a moment. Before that, quick break. Let's start with the Seattle Mariners. The Mariners, I simply wrote get excited for this offseason. I'm not saying, oh, you get to watch, the starting rotation go at it again in 2025, because watching this starting rotation was one of the highlights of Major League Baseball in its entirety this year. I'd say it was Ohtani, it was Judge, Bobby Witt, Gunnar. The Mariners rotation is right there with it, with how good Gilbert was, with how good Kirby was for the majority of the year, the breakouts in earnest of Brian Wu and of Bryce Miller. My thing is, this offseason, you will see Jerry Dipoto try and correct this lineup to the best of his abilities. I think he kind of half-assed it the year before last. I think he kind of half-assed it last year. Now, buckle up, because he's got to try it.
Yeah, I think it was a step closer to full ass this past year, but 2 years ago it was definitely, it just didn't feel like he was really giving it his best shot at all. I felt like this year there was a little bit more creativity there. I really did not think Mitch Garver would be this bad. I can't fault them for that. I actually liked
I
that
didn't think
addition.
Jorge Polanco would be that bad for 4 months.
No, and then he ended up being better in the second half, but even then, right? Like I mean, JP Crawford was hurt for so much of the year, ends up hitting 198 this year, by the way. I didn't even realize that. Yeah, there's some wrinkles in this thing where it's like, okay, you need to also figure out what was a down year versus, what's a guy that maybe we should look at and say maybe we were a little ambitious with what we could expect from them. I even look at a Victor Robles. I know they extended him. I think he's great, to fill a role for them next year. But if you're counting on Victor Robles to give you an 800 OPS next season, you might be setting yourself up for failure again. So that's what I'm interested to see. Like, how much are they going to count on guys that popped? Like, Luke Raley ended up being one of the more productive bats, but even his slow start at points, I think, was hurting them. Like, I think they just need some more proven commodities, right? Like, where J-Rod is too volatile at this point to where, like, you can't even count on him, I think, to pencil in, hey, this is going to be the slash line this year. He's a proven commodity in terms of his five tools and everything that he can bring. But in terms of, like, when I can look at it before the year and say, what is this guy going to give me production wise? I think Cal Rowley's like the one guy that, for better and for worse, exactly what you're going to get.
Yeah.
I think J-Rod, you can't really fault anybody there. He's 23. I think next year you really hope he can build on it. But he was a popular MVP pick because we figured, the way he started last year, the way he finished, he's going to build on that. And then it was still more of the same volatility. So I think you have to be just looking forward to what in the world does a Dipoto, who now his seat's getting warm, right? Like, if he doesn't get it right this offseason, they're going to be, I think he's pretty much done, right? Like, if that offense isn't better next year, he's done. So this is going to be a little bit more desperate of a Dipoto, and you can't just hang his hat on the rotation. And I'm very interested to see what that looks like. So I think that's definitely what's best to look forward to.
Minnesota Twins, where do you go on them?
This one might be one of the hardest because I don't know what in the world they're going to do. And the exhibit, they're the first thing they're not going to do is spend money.
Yeah. So that's why I go to some of the pre-arb guys. I will say I'm excited to see Pablo Lopez hit the reset button because it was such an ebby and flowy year. I don't know if that's the right way to possibly use that. Ebbs and flows is the correct way, but ebby and flowy, does that work? Um, I'm excited for Pablo to hit the reset button, but three pre-arb guys. I'm very amped for a full year of Brooks Lee and Royce Lewis in the lineup, assuming health for Royce Lewis and assuming health for Brooks Lee too. Holy shit! And then Emmanuel Rodriguez joins the fold, assuming health. Holy, like he missed the
Yeah.
last week of the AAA season with a thumb thing. Everybody's volatile, but I am excited for the opening day roster to possibly include Brooks Lee, Royce Lewis, Emmanuel Rodriguez. I think that can be really fun.
Emmanuel Rodriguez can be a game changer for this ball club, and I'm with you. I think the young sluggers, and this team just needs young mashers because even if some of them are injury prone, give me as many young mashers as possible. What Matt Wallner was able to do this year, I think what he's turned into, where you can really count on this guy to be a major slugger piece for you. It's weird because he strikes out a ton and he's probably more of a platoon piece, but I think just seeing the way that he has grown has been great. And then Emmanuel Rodriguez, I mean, what he can do in terms of being able to level this ball club up. We already know that it's tough to keep people out there in center field because Buxton is, not always available. So
Yep.
just having another guy that can play a good center, but also, you can put him in the corners there and he'd be really solid there. Days where you want to put Buxton DH, whatever it may be. Maybe some days you put Eduardo at DH too if you want. But I mean, this guy's potential is 30 homers and crazy OBP. So that's what it is for me too. Just kind of seeing more of these young offensive pieces get more run because you're going to see, a Max Kepler probably out of the fold here. They may even just finally decide to move off of Alex Kirilloff and now just kind of have some new faces here. Because if I'm a Twins fan, I'm just tired of seeing, and I know they've even all had great flashes, and I still, think they could be good, but ultimately I think it's going to have to be somewhere else. I'm tired of seeing Kirilloff. I'm kind of tired of seeing Larnick. I'm
Yeah.
tired of seeing some of these usual faces where there's more talent coming up, and I want to see what those guys can do.
I totally understand that. I'm with you. Like I think that they're going to do a nice job freshening up this offseason, and that is getting cheaper. It's kind of nice when that scenario is
Where
also
it can
getting
actually
cheaper.
is justifiable from a roster
Exactly.
perspective.
Exactly. So the Boston Red Sox, where do you stand on them? I can ID a time. I can get into that after you go, but I'm really excited for the winter meetings with the Boston Red Sox.
I think the best way to say it is I'm excited to see what they do with their favorable situation all of a sudden
Uh-huh.
because they've got so much talent and specifically left-handed hitting talent that teams are always looking for. And you look at the big league roster and everything they have there. Um, with Duran emerging into really playing at a superstar level this year, we'll see if he can follow it up. And then I think you can really start to throw that word out a little bit more with him if he
Mm-hmm.
duplicates this season. With Yoshida actually playing himself into a point where now his contract is probably movable.
Yep.
With Wilyer Abreu emerging as a legitimate piece, like, and then Casas is a special bat, and that he was able to come back and be healthy at the end of the year. Like you have all those pieces, and then you have arguably the number one prospect in baseball who looks just about big league ready in Roman Anthony. Marcelo Myers not far away as a top left-handed hitting shortstop. One of the best prospects on the left side of the infield there. And other pieces that are also very close. Christian Campbell and
Kyle
Kyle
Teal.
Teal and. So they have all of these pieces, and I don't think you just bank on those guys, being able to come up and help you. But you can either trade from some of that in AAA in Worcester, or you can trade from some of what you got at the big league level. Obviously you're not moving Duran, but a Wilyer Abreu could go get you a nice haul, or be part of a deal to go get some more pitching. I'm excited to see what Breslow looks like with this situation that he has kind of helped build for himself here. And I'd say a lot of that is some residual, talent that Heim Bloom was able to help build in the farm system. That was the one thing that he definitely was very good at. But I'm excited to see what they turn that into for sure.
I'm so fired up, man. And like, I'm thinking, okay, well, Casas can go get you a frontline guy. And I know that Ken Rosenthal brought that idea up of Casas getting moved. You signed Bregman, you moved Devers to first. Will your Abreu and maybe a prospect can go get you Bryce Miller from Seattle. And that solves a couple of problems here. Like they have an opportunity. I'm with you. They have such a favorable situation. And I'm so excited to see how they navigate that. Not only that, man, like they're going to improve that starting rotation. And there are a couple guys in there that are going to be Boston Red Sox starters. And you've got a ton of depth that can hang out in, AAA if you want. Like Quinn Priester just went 5 innings of 1-run ball on Sunday. Richard Fitz put together a great 3-start stretch for you. But like Tanner Houck is in that rotation. Okay, everybody else kind of feels like they're interchangeable. Let's go find a front line guy. Can you go get Garrett Crochet from the Chicago White Sox? That is an opportunity for them.
It's funny, that would be a totally different trade where because like, everyone wants, the litany of prospects, but with the way Chris Getz operates, like I think you'd be very interested in guys that are already kind of proven at the big league level, and you don't have to worry too much about it. Still have all these years of control. I mean, they could go do whatever they want, and I really hope that the Red Sox and Craig Breslow take advantage of that.
Absolutely. The Tampa Bay Rays, where do you stand on their front?
Their farm system is so good again now,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't want to be lame to say the Rays farm system. I don't really care that ultimately that much about that because I want, on this show especially, but I'm excited to see a full season and look forward to a full season of Junior Caminero.
Okay.
This guy can change the entire outlook for this ball club going into next year. And I'll say it on multiple fronts. How about a full season of Caminero and Jonathan Aranda? Because
Okay.
Aranda finally got every day at bats. I've been screaming to the heavens about this guy. I don't think he's a superstar, but if you think Vinnie Pasquantino's good, you'll probably like Jonathan Aranda too, because I think he can do a lot of the same things. So that's another guy that just hasn't had the opportunity and is finally really slugged, and now that he's gotten consistent run. So seeing those two guys, and then, what do they do with Yandy Diaz and what do they turn that into is another interesting conversation. But I think if you're a Rays fan, it was such a frustrating year. You were expecting this to be the Unleash Caminero year. And I think you got to be really excited to see what a full season of Junior Caminero looks like next year because he can hit you 30 plus,
Yeah.
and that changes everything for your ball club, especially one that, didn't have anybody that even
Yep.
sniffed 30 home runs this season.
Caminero in that lineup, Aranda in that lineup. I know we talked about this 2, 3 weeks ago. McClanahan, Bradley, Boz, Springs, Pepio, Littell, Rasmussen.
Yeah, what the
Seven
hell do they
guys.
do with the rotation? Is a
Seven
fun, just
guys.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, dude. And like, I'm thinking, hey, do you fast track Yonio Cure to the bullpen and have him tick up there? They have an elite setup guy already in Hunter Biggie. Hunter Biggie looks the part at this point. Uceta, I know he had that weird blow up. He looks the part at this point. They have so much pitching. Do you add to that offense? Do you finally go find a catcher that's serviceable? Like you're the Tampa Bay Rays,
Well,
probably not.
nah, I think they just call up Dom Keegan, right?
Dominic
I mean,
Keegan,
I
yeah.
like Keegan too. I think for Rays fans, I think a good way to sum it up too is to look forward to them being the Rays again next year because I really expect
Mhm.
them to be.
Yeah, absolutely. The Texas Rangers, I'm going to make it very simple. DeGrom, Eovaldi, Malley, Rocker, Leiter. That's
Yep.
awesome.
And how about Wyatt Langford looking like he's finally settled in like fully as a big leaguer?
And a full year of Evan Carter.
Yeah, I would just say health and
Health.
the youth movement. Like it's going to be really fun.
Yeah, dude. I like, I don't know. I don't want to say that I think the Rangers, yeah, I guess they did. Like it, for some reason, they were just so out of it so quickly. I almost boxed them out of the you were underwhelming conversation. They were obviously very underwhelming, but I'm with you. They were very unhealthy at the same time. Next year,
Yeah.
I feel like is a good judge of who are you. You don't have to deal with the Scherzer thing anymore, where you have to like try and shoehorn him back into the rotation. And oh, he's on his third rehab of the year. That's exciting. Like we don't have to do that anymore. You get DeGrom back on opening day. You have your opening day starter. Kumar Rocker is in that rotation on opening day. Leiter is in that rotation on opening day, and he's worked through, the blips on the radar that came with his first two starts at the major league level. There are just options now, and I feel like next year we can properly evaluate who the Texas Rangers are.
And quietly through this whole thing, Nady Eovaldi gave you a 3.96 over 163 and 2/3 innings. Like that's one of the better three or fours you're going to have in that rotation, in Major League Baseball. And
Exactly.
I think the other quiet thing is what you've been able to get from Corey Seager when he has been healthy this season. It's just
Yeah.
continued to be really good. So I think it's a team that's going to just be better next year, even if they don't add a single player.
Yeah. The
So that's what I'm excited about.
Toronto Blue Jays. It was kind of hard for me to pluck something. I settled on we'll get Vladdy Bichette closure at some point.
Yeah, I would say a direction, hopefully.
Okay.
Whether that be from front office, whether that be with the ball club, roster wise, whatever. This team has been a hell of a lot better since they just went young and I think started playing a little bit more freely instead of trying to cosplay as this team that can contend that we realized, I think, quite early just wasn't going to get back there this year. It just
Yeah.
they got older, or it just wasn't working. And once they went younger, I think this team looked a lot better. So I think a direction, because I think there's going to be some fat to be trimmed, and I think there's still some free agents and money that could be spent in ways that they can make this team better still for the short term and the long term. So yeah, I think a clear direction, whether that be on in the front office or on the field or both.
Oakland, pretty easy for me, to be honest. You get closer and closer to the promised product offensively. Like Nick Kurtz will be there at some point. I think Nick Kurtz is going to be there by the All-Star break, the guy that they just took fourth overall. And then you get that full season of Jacob Wilson, and you have Soderstrom that is back and healthy, ready to go. Shea Langoliers is there. Lawrence Butler is there. Esteury Ruiz should be healthy again and should be on the major league roster to break camp. Don't forget about Rooker. Don't forget about Blade. There's a lot of fun here. And pitching, like there's something to be desired, but you are getting closer to that offensive identity when you move to Sacramento.
Without a doubt. I think that's this year has been really encouraging just to see pieces
Very.
solidify themselves here. Where like you can look at Butler and say, we've got a guy now for a while. Rooker is an extension candidate as they move stadiums because you assume that they're going to spend some money. Extend the guy that's going to almost hit 40 and hit 300.
Yeah.
And you went through all the players. Like they've got pieces all of a sudden. And, you know, it's really nice to see. So they got to figure the pitching side out a little bit. And I think they will. They've got some guys coming up. But, you know, you can definitely see the light at the end of the tunnel with the A's
You don't have Joey Estes
on the
fever?
baseball field.
Yeah, on the baseball field. Joey Estes fever that like
Yeah.
you don't have it yet?
JP Sears fever a little bit, dude. I got JP Sears fever as like a late innings eater.
They have a JP and a JT. Is that fun enough for you?
Gonna need a little bit more on the pitching side.
It's
Ken
gonna get
Waldichuk should be back sometime next year, though.
oh,
Don't sleep.
that's kind of fun. It sucks that they DFA'd Kyle Muller this year. Like boo.
I know.
But whatever. Okay, the Angels for me, simple. Middle infield. Like you get Zach Neto and Christian Moore. I don't know how long you're gonna get it. I'd assume 162 games, assuming health. But yeah, Neto and Moore is one of the only redeeming qualities about this franchise.
Well, you never know what the last day of Artie Moreno's tenure of owner of the Angels will be, but I can guarantee you it's one off season closer to
Yeah,
the end of it. So I think that side of it is good.
cool.
And then hopefully just Mike Trout back on a baseball field again. I wish I could give you,
Mhm.
you know, more than that, but yeah, it's just seeing Neto continue to blossom and get Christian Moore up there sometime.
Last but not least in the American League is the Chicago White Sox. I can do the name thing again, and I wrote it down. Thorpe, Noah Schultz, Cannon, Burke, Iriarte, Kai Bush. Like, cool. There's going to be a little bit of intrigue on the mound every night, it feels like.
No doubt. And I think the return for
Crochet,
you know, Crochet, where
maybe Luis
I know
Robert.
that's kind of lame. You know, I know that you're probably tired of hearing about that stuff and things like that. But what the White Sox have actually been able, and I'll credit Crochet more than the White Sox, but it happened while he's with the White Sox. What they've been able to turn him into from a fast tracked reliever to the big leagues to a guy that, you know, will probably bring in one of the larger trade returns we've seen in some time for a pitcher, or at least up there with any, is huge for the organization and huge for a franchise that is, you know, is a bad of a situation as we've seen. So I think that part should be a huge aspect of optimism as well, because that they can get a franchise altering haul of not guys at the lower levels. Like they can get like close to big league ready pieces that I think could be, you know, big for them.
We'll go cross town in a moment for the National League. Before that, one more quick break. The North Siders. What do we have here? For me, how do you fit Shaw and Casey? How do you fit Matt Shaw, who's ready at this point, and Owen Casey, who balled for an entire year with AAA Iowa? Is it big leaguers for pitching? Nico Horner has been a name that I think in all likelihood will get moved. Who does he get moved for? Is it starting pitching help? Is it a closer? I don't know what's going to happen here. I'm just excited to see how the puzzle pieces fit into the whole darn thing.
Oh, I can't wait. I just as basically what do the prospects do to the big league roster, which usually is never much, but to like you're saying here, when these guys are some of the better hitters in AAA as some of the younger hitters in AAA and give you much needed power and some sneaky athleticism, especially with Shaw, but Casey can motor a little bit too. Like this is an absolutely huge addition to the lineup, but they got to make space for him, right? So I'm very excited just to see how they do that. And with Horner, a light shortstop market, I can't wait to just see how many teams are going to be lined up to maybe try to get Horner to put him at shortstop. And on top of that, what kind of return he could ultimately bring in, because it may not be the sexiest, game in the world, but that guy at short, he's going to accumulate a lot of WAR and he's going to steal bags. And I think he's better than a lot of the free agent options that you're going to have here. Most
Feel,
of them.
feel free to call me an idiot if you want. The San Francisco Giants, if they whiff on Willie Adames, Nico Horner for Ryan Walker.
You need more than that.
Ryan Walker and prospects?
I think so,
Ryan
man.
Walker's a
And this
closer with 4 years of control.
is 4 years of control. I would want something a little extra. This is a guy that's had 3 straight 4-win seasons in Nico Horner, and
Okay.
that's at second base.
Okay. Give me Ryan Walker and a decent pitching prospect.
Yeah, something along those lines. Like, because okay, he's under control for 2025 and 2026, right?
Yeah.
In terms, Nico Horner is.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, you can. I think you can get more than that. I think you can get Walker and a couple solid prospects.
That's a fun starting point.
I agree.
So
I agree.
fire me up on that. The St. Louis Cardinals, we've spent too much time on them already. Trying the Walker win thing again, I guess. That's my big thing.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I don't have much on them other than you'll get some clarity because we've talked about status quo. If they're trimming payroll, at least you got a direction here, and you're going to know what direction they're heading. Or they trim and make some savvy trades or things like that. Regardless, it's gonna look different, and I think that's something to look forward to for Cardinals fans because the last 3 years have been frustratingly similar, but just a little bit less inspiring each of the last 3 years.
How about the Giants? Where do you go here?
I actually think they've set themselves up decent with last offseason that they had, depending on what they do. I think the biggest thing to look forward to is, are they able to retain these star players that they actually signed on affordable deals in
Yeah.
Matt Chapman and Blake Snell? So
And
that's a
Chapman's
question.
the answer is already yes on Chapman,
Yeah.
which is great. So like it's nice that you got that extension done before the offseason. So you get to Snell is our guy. We need to do this now.
Yes. So I would say look forward to them keeping their star players. I think the Chapman signing was a huge indication of something. I think very positive. And another, front office that is kind of fighting for its job a little bit. You nailed a couple here. I think just having those two pieces as your baseline on top of Logan Webb, I think you can actually see a strong baseline here from a team that really did lack some of that star power. And I know you probably don't look at Matt Chapman and think star, but we talked about some of the most valuable players in the sport this year. He's top 15 in WAR, in F4, and it was close to the first 30 home run season since Bonds in San Francisco. Like they finally have some star power here. So I would just be excited to see how they build on that because I don't think the Giants are going to squander that. And that's the one thing that's a little bit different from the Cardinals is,
Yeah.
this is a historically good franchise and as well. And, that has a lot of winning with them. And, they will not accept this much stagnation. They'll at least try something different. And we saw that this past offseason. And I think they're going to do it again. And just be aggressive yet again.
I'll play the yes and game like we're in an improv class. Yes and Bryce Eldridge.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
We're trying
I
to
can't wait
fast
to see it.
track him.
Yeah, I would say if you're a Giants fan, you should be tapped into the fall league. Even if you don't care about prospects, go see what Bryce Eldridge is doing in the fall league. We'll keep you tapped in, by the way, on the call up. But they're fast tracking this guy for a reason. Their first round pick. They told him to stop pitching for a reason. He's 6'7", massive power. Like they think he can help them next year. And if he can, that adds a lot more fun to that entire lineup.
Yep. The Cincinnati Reds, I just wrote health, like one word. This was a year from hell, health-wise for them, where McLean missed the entirety of the year. Christian Encarnacion Strand is going to the fall league. Like Noelvi Marte suspended at the outset. He looked brutal when he came back. I'm very excited to see Ellie build on what he did this year and the health of everybody else, literally.
Yeah, I was just going to say Matt McLean because
Mhm.
I think it's easy to forget when you don't have a guy for an entire season how freaking good Matt McLean is and was last year. With that shoulder surgery, wiped out the season. That guy accumulated 3.1 F4 in 89 games. And that was it. Playing shortstop, good defense at shortstop. you're going to have him now playing in different spots where I think he's going to be one of the better defenders you'll see. I think, especially like second base, I think he's going to be superb there. And then the bat that he's going to bring as well. That guy hit 16 homers, so I think he's going to be kind of everything that they were lacking. Another athlete at the top of that lineup. He stole 14 bags in those 89 games. Like, this guy hit 16 home runs, stole 14 bags, and what was almost half of the season, and hit 290 with a 127 WRC plus. You don't just get to add guys like that. And
Right.
that's something that, like, I know he got off to a hot start, and maybe there'll be some normalization there, but I also think he's going to get better and better as a player. So this is a guy that's had a lot of time off to think about the mental side as well. I think he's going to come back next year and look really good. And I'm excited to see what that looks like. So I think just remembering that Matt McClain is an all-star caliber player that
Yeah.
they're adding back to the fold.
Is a person that exists and he's in your organization. The Pittsburgh Pirates, I think Ben Cherington and Jerry Dipoto are in very similar spots. You have the elite promise of a starting rotation. How do you build the lineup to complement the rotation? If you don't, job security has, certainly been well documented for Dipoto, for Ben Cherington, and I think that could be the straw that breaks the camel's back. So I wrote opening day lineup with Skeens on the bump. You have Paul Skeens for 162. Jared Jones exists. Mitch Keller exists. Bubba Chandler, Thomas Harrington, they should not spend much time in the minor leagues. Mike Burrows looked awesome on Saturday in New York. Braxton Ashcraft should be healthy at the start of next year. There's pitching galore. How do you get better offensively? That's my big question.
Yeah, so I was going to say, just look forward to the fact that Charrington is, if he can't make this offense better for 2025, it's probably a wrap for him too. So
Yeah.
just seeing some urgency from Charrington, presumably, or if not, I think you can count on probably seeing a new GM after next year. So either way, I think it's going to get the Pirates in a direction one way or another on the offensive side. And I think they are going to be pretty aggressive knowing what they have staff wise. And a Paul Skeens, having somebody like that at the top of your staff going into next year, I think puts you in a spot where you know what you have to do. And you have to be a little bit more willing to roll the dice to get some offensive pieces.
Skeens and Bubba going in the same series at some point next season, like that's going to be utterly insane. And if you go Skeens, Chandler, Jones, I mean, good night, dude. Like, if all three of those guys are firing, that is a must-watch weekend of Pirates baseball.
I mean, depending on the performance of Jared Jones and assuming Bubba is everything that we know he can
Think he
be,
will be,
I
yeah.
mean, yeah. I mean, Mitch Keller and or Jared Jones is your four.
Yeah.
Like that's ridiculous.
Stupid. And
Absolutely ridiculous.
Harrington could be one of the better fives in Major League Baseball.
Oh yeah, he could. Yeah,
So
they're in a wonderful place. And Mike Burrows has looked pretty darn good.
yeah, yeah,
He's gonna be in the fall league. It's gonna be nice to see him throw.
and he looked legit in New York, man. Three more teams: the Washington Nationals, Wood, Cruz, House, Bally Boy. I'm excited for all of this. So that for a full year is going to be awesome. Plus, Travis Sikora has turned into a rocket ship, and keeping tabs on Sikora, who could turn into one of the better pitching prospects in all of Major League Baseball, is going to be very fun.
Yeah, the young core. It's got to just be the young core. It's the most exciting, I think, young pieces that you're going to find, especially with just the Wood and Cruz combination. And then, we'll see how. I think a good wake up call for CJ Abrams there, and I think he's going to bounce back and have a great year next year after what was a phenomenal first half. So I think as that young core continues to mature, you could see some really bright days ahead. And I think next year is going to be the first year where you start to see this Nationals team transition into a young contender instead of just a young team.
Two more, the Colorado Rockies. Yanquiel Fernandez, 33 games in Albuquerque. Yanquiel Fernandez is going to be a Rocky in 2025. This lineup is the closest that we've seen to what was promised to us, and we will see the promised lineup next year.
What's the promised lineup? Zach Veen, Yanquiel Fernandez, Nolan Jones,
Romo,
Mike Tolia,
Romo, Tovar, Hunter Goodman, Amador, Veen. We'll try again with Bryant. I don't know. It's fun.
Yeah, that's all I got, I think. Yeah, there's some young players coming up that can
Dolander and Sean Sullivan. Like, that could be the real answer.
There's some and Gabriel Hughes, by the way, backfields per sources sitting 93, 95, their first round pick in 2022. He was more 92, 94 before. So coming back throwing harder. He's a guy that they'll probably fast track too, as long as he looks good, had a good feel for the secondary. So I would say the pitching actually would be the serious answer.
Cool.
Is the Rockies have more minor league pitching talent than I can remember in a long time. Beyond Dolander, Sean Sullivan, who are two of the best performers in minor league baseball, both first all MILB for us at the call up. Go check out that episode. We did the all MILB team for hitters and pitchers. But two guys, we joked about it. Like it's never. I don't think we've ever had that circumstance. But then even like depth, Carson Palmquist has looked like that guy could at least be a reliever. Jaden Hill looks like he could be a high leverage reliever.
Zach Agnos, yeah.
Seth Halverson is gross. Like
Mm-hmm.
they've got arms all of a sudden. So I would say look forward to these arms. It's cool to see what they've got and what they're building there.
And the promised lineup. You're just a hater. Last but not least, the Miami Marlins. Sandy and Yuri! Exclamation point.
Sandy was throwing 100 in his first live APs back. He was like cruising 100 as he let loose. Uh, I was talking to Griff about it actually because he wanted to try to get some live ABs. And they joked him like, "Oh, you want to get in there?" And he's like, "Actually, yeah, I would love to." Ended up he didn't need to because throwing to a couple other guys and he didn't need to throw anymore. But Griff said he looked like as good as ever.
You look like Sandy.
So yeah, he looked like Cy Young Sandy. So I think that guy just having the time off and getting 100% healthy, and you know that he's just gonna outwork pretty much anybody. That's scary, combined with a Yuri Perez who's kind of following as his understudy now, even with the recovering of the Tommy John surgery and the tone that Sandy has set. I think that just the pitching in general. Like Jesus Luzardo, I don't know if they're going to move him or not. He is the heart and soul of that clubhouse. So like that's an interesting wrinkle in this whole thing. And remember, it wasn't an arm thing. It's more of a lumbar spine thing. So his arm should be fine. If they roll out into the season like with Sandy, eventually Yuri, you have Luzardo, Braxton Garrett, Ryan Weathers, like Max Myers in the fold there, Edward Cabrera, who looked phenomenal down the stretch. This pitching can be special. So like we saw what the Tigers were able to do with a staff that was top in baseball in the second half. I know the Marlins have a lot of offensive pieces they need to find, but like the pitching's there. So I think for Marlins fans, it's maybe looking forward to the idea that it's not impossible that this team can be semi-competitive next year if they can just have a league average offense or close to it. And I don't think it's crazy to say that they could have a league average offense with the emergence of Xavier Edwards, with the fact that, they've actually had a couple guys like a Jonah Bride swing it well. And, Connor Norby's shown some flashes and they're going to have some money coming off the books. So they'll probably sign a couple veterans. We'll see how it all looks. But I would say hopefully a full season of Griffin Conine would be a great thing for fans to look forward to, who got the WRC plus up to 124 after yesterday's game. But as we're recording this, just got rung up on the worst call I've seen in a long time.
Tough feat. We are putting all of these teams to bed. Just postseason from here on out. You get the bracket from all three of us tomorrow. Every link you need is in the episode description. For Aram, I'm Jack. We will talk to you tomorrow for some playoff ball.